This is Kevin Moses. I attend Jackson State University. I am interviewing Professor Shauna Smith on the date of November 29, 2018 at Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. This interview is being recorded as a part of an exclusive future faculty initiative sponsored by the Frederick Douglass Institution Collaborative of Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. The interview is being recorded on a computer tablet. We start off by asking, what is your full name?
My name is Shauna Louise Smith.
Okay, great. What is your department rank and what university are you currently employed?
I'm an assistant professor of English in the Department of English, Foreign Language, and Speech Communication at Jackson State University.
Great. And how long have you worked at this university?
This is my third year.
Third year? Great. And how long have you been employed here as a professor?
3 years.
3 years. What made you decide to go to grad school to pursue a terminal degree?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. And I'll try to give you the short version. I think that first I spent 9 years teaching high school English in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And while I got a lot of good experiences out of that, and I kind of needed that experience, I wasn't happy. It wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. I knew that I was a writer, that I wanted to be writing. I knew that I liked African American literature and culture. And when I was an undergraduate, when I was 19 years old, I had a professor at Kentucky State University, the first Black teacher I ever had that talked about African American literature extensively. She was a poet, she was a playwright, so I never met anybody like her. And so there were some of us who kind of followed her around. And I happened to be a friend of her daughter, so I kept up with them once she left the university and moved to New York. But when she moved back to Louisville and started working at the University of Louisville, we reconnected because, of course, I was teaching by then. And I decided to go to the University of Louisville and take one of her poetry classes. I think I had just started taking a certificate program in Pan-African Studies. And so all of this kind of found me. And so when she ran into me on campus, she looked at me, she said, "What is wrong with you? Something's not right. Come to my house tonight at 7 o'clock. And so I had to go to her house at 7 o'clock. And she's like, "Okay, what happened? You look miserable. What happened this writing that you're supposed to be doing? When you figure out how to get yourself out of this situation, call me." And so I did, and that was the last year that I taught high school in 2002. And I became her assistant for a year, finished the certificate program in Pan-African Studies, and while I was assisting her, she pretty much said, "You're going to stay in my office and you're going to apply to these doctoral programs." And she gave me 5 to apply to, but kind of the backstory to even that is maybe somewhere inside I was already kind of searching. So I'd go places and I'd ask Black professors what universities are really good for African American women's literature in particular. And I would hear this school, that school. But I always heard the University of Maryland, College Park, because Marion Helen Washington was there, Carla Peterson was there. They were doing the kind of work I was interested in. And so I applied there in addition to the 5 other schools that my mentor had me to apply to, and I got accepted. But I never mentioned my mentor by name. Her name is Estella Conwell Majozo. She made up her last name out of Mary McLeod Bethune, Josephine Baker, and Zorino Hurston. So, and she's still a mentor in my life today, still very close to that family, and still do some work with her.
Great. So you summed up a few of the next few questions. Someone just asked, what college or grad school experience contributed to you to decide to become a professor?
Well, my alma mater, Kentucky State University. So I am very committed to historically Black colleges and universities. My parents attended Kentucky State, my sister, cousins, and that kind of laid the groundwork, not just because that's where Dr. Estella worked and where I met her that kind of launched me into this trajectory of African American literature. But because of the other support that I got there, being able to be very involved on campus and people taking notice of you, my first plane rides, my first conferences were because I attended that university.
Okay, great. And before all of this, what made you decide to become a professor?
I'm not sure. I had friends that would say that they wanted their PhDs. I never said that. I kept saying I wanted to be a writer. But then I journal a lot. And so I can go back to this day and look at some of the journals that I was writing about. And it's like I was trying to figure out my life, when I was in my late 20s and early 30s. And I said, if I do go back to school, I want to study African American literature and culture. I still want to be a writer, and all of these kind of things. So it's like I was saying what I wanted to do before I really had words for it. And again, if I look back, the people that were the most significant with kind of encouraging me, shaping me, or seeing something in me, they were all professors, and most of them were Black women. And so I've always been kind of surrounded by Black women with PhDs. And so I'm not sure quite that's what it was. I know that by the time Dr. Stella interviewed me, she said, "No, this is what you're going to do." And I remember the conversation saying, "Listen, our generation is going to retire, and we need you there." So I remember that conversation very well. And even one of the last times I saw her, when I went home, I said, "How did you know that this was for me? How did you know that?" She didn't really have an answer that I was expecting. I'm not even sure what the answer was. But I know that as a professor now, I know I see things in students. And sometimes I can tell the ones that are coming behind you. You want to pull them along. You don't want to scare them, but you do want to pull them along.
What are your responsibilities as a faculty?
Well, to teach, of course. So I teach courses in African American literature, composition, sometimes other courses, whether it's poetry or different things. But I think also I mentor, I advise, I still research and write, develop programs. I've had the opportunity here to participate and have grants and work on other professional projects. So, professors do a lot.
So what is the day in the life of Professor like? What's it like to be on you?
It really is. Because even today, that is technically the day that I'm not teaching, I was still up probably at 6:30 and 7, answering emails from students. So a day in the life can be getting up early and answering emails from students, and then coming to teach a class. Because Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I have an 8 o'clock class. But when I finish there, I come here. This week, I meet with students all day long with conferences because it's close to the end of the semester, and they all need help and support. So literally yesterday, I was here all day long with conferences. I'm going to be doing the same today. And then even after I finish conferencing, I'll have a meeting, because I have to do my own personal writing project. So I have an accountability group to make sure that I'm doing my research and writing. And that's typically the way that it goes. I get invited by a student to go to plays, come see my play. So I'll do those kind of things because I like doing those kind of things. And even earlier this week, in addition to the teacher class, you might go to meetings, but we had 2 panels, a student panel that I facilitated in the day, and then a faculty panel that I participated in the evening. So it can be a long day.
What is your favorite part of the job and your least favorite part of the job?
Gosh. Well, I love teaching. When I was teaching high school, I would never say that. But now I get to teach, and I get to teach the kind of things that I want to. And I love that I get to connect the dots for them. Because this week we had a pretty heavy election. But the things that I was teaching in a composition class was, about young adults and social justice. So I get to talk about those things connected with things like the election, design panels like the one we had Tuesday, because I'm teaching the hate you give. So the panel had to do with the film the hate you give, the film The Black Klansman, and also Jubilee. So I love being able to teach all of those kind of things, historical things, literature, contemporary things in context, and getting them talking and thinking. That part is fun, but I have to say that also right up there is the mentoring that I get to do, whether students realize that I'm doing it or not. You have to be a little sneaky with that, but yeah, I realize I'm doing it. Least favorite? Grading papers.
Grading papers. Very understanding.
The volume as an English professor of the papers that you grade, it can be a lot.
Right. I understand that. It's what is the most challenging part of being a professor? How do you overcome it?
There are a couple of challenges. I think just based on what I said earlier, it can be time management because you can pour everything of yourself into your students. You're always meeting with them, teaching them, answering email, checking things. So sometimes it's you're so busy pouring out, you wear yourself out. So it's being able to balance what I need to do, because I have a full life. It's with the rest of my life. So that can be definitely challenging. But also with school and on campus in particular, a challenging part is some of the students that disappear. The ones that have potential that stop coming. The ones that can do more than they're doing but fail. That is very challenging.
What is your area of research?
Well, my research area of specialization is African American literature and culture. I do work with oral history. So I have a project even right now where I interview African American writers from my home state of Kentucky. And that has been really interesting and exciting for me.
How does a professor advance their career in this institution?
Well, we're required, of course, to teach, to participate in the campus and our department. So we do that through committees, but there's all kinds of things, like with the conferences we have, workshops that we have. So there's the service component, but also with research and publications. Because a lot of us that are here, we've got specialized interests, things that kind of drive us, our passions.
Correct.
And so we want to continue to write about those things, research about those things, go to conferences, present about those kind of things. So those are the kind of things that advance our careers, when we connect those things on our campus, but also in our field and with our colleagues, around the nation.
Okay. And how do you define success in this profession?
Success is when I see my students graduate. Success is when I see a student kind of, I love knuckleheads. So when they, when you see them grow, and you see them develop and clicks with them, and they realize what it is that they can do, and they just kind of go off and fly with it, that's success. That's success in my profession.
Well, is there anything you'd like to add that I can ask?
Well, that I'm glad that we're having this interview today, that it's necessary and it's important. I think that a lot of students at HBCUs take their profession answers for granted. Just the other day, I had to remind them. One of them was they were talking about all of these black professors that they have, and just talking about it in a certain kind of way where I realized, oh, they think that we're everywhere. And I had to tell them, listen, actually, there's probably about nationally 2 to 3% of us nationwide, but you might have a larger concentration of us at an HBCU. But for me, I'm here intentionally because this is where I want to be. I want to work at an HBCU. And so you might have a lot of us that are here, but they don't realize how few of us, in the world that there are. And so I want to make sure that that's clear. And again, knowing the mantle that was passed to me, that I have the responsibility to seek out some and try to pull them along.
Let's do a little bit longer. How did you choose this? How did you choose this school, Jackson State?
Okay, I had left Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania in 2016, and I was home for a little while. So I was in Kentucky, and I was on the job market, and I applied. They had a position open for African American literature. And so the first year that I was here, in the fall of 2016, I was a visiting professor, actually. So there's different paths, I guess, to get where it is that we are. So I guess I'm talking about two things. How I got here, but also, the job market is tight these days. So we have to find alternative ways to get in. So at Bloomsburg, I was a visiting professor, or postdoc, you would say, with the Frederick Douglass Teaching Scholars Program. So I spent about a year and a half there, and then a year as a visiting professor. But the person that I was kind of replacing for that year didn't return, and they decided they wanted to keep me. And so I became an assistant professor. So that's how I got here, and why I'm still here.
Great. I guess you have some problems required to come here. Now, the next question I'm going to ask you, what part of this process makes you the most nervous?
It's always the job interview. I was flown out here to interview, and now you're in a room where it seemed like there's a lot of people. It was probably less than 20 people in the room, but everybody is looking at you, and you have to sell yourself on what it is that you know. And they're asking you questions, from their area of interest and what they're looking for that maybe you're unaware of.
Right.
So that can be a little tricky and scary because you don't know if you are coming across the way that you would like to, or the way that they need.
Okay. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I came up with that because I'm a reader,
Mm-hmm.
and I just started noticing some things, in it. The topic ended up being from a concept that I call story bearing, which is really, in families there's that kind of painful story or the secret of the family that people hint about, but nobody knows all of the information. Stories get lost because the elders don't pass them on. So the story bearer is the one person in the family who's kind of assigned, or they kind of carry the mantle of recovering that lost, silenced, painful narrative and carry the family history. And so what I did as an oral history was I interviewed 3 writers who were those story bearers in their family. So Aurelia Bundles is the great-great-granddaughter of Madam C.J. Walker. And I was her research assistant for a little bit. So she connected me with some other people. So I also interviewed Shirley Haisler. And her story is her mother lost her whole family because they all passed for white. And she and her younger brother were the only ones that tinged too brown to pass for white. And so she lost them, and Shirley decided, you know what, I'm going to find my mother's family. I'm going to find out what happened and give it to her as a gift. But what she didn't know, she united her with her white passing sister. And they all went on the Oprah Winfrey Show, and she wrote this book, and it became a big thing. Because white people didn't realize that passing existed on that level, or they might have it in their family. So I interviewed her, and then I interviewed a woman named Ione, who is a great granddaughter of a woman in the 19th century who was a journalist and wrote a book about Martin Delany, who was like an abolitionist and a race man. So it was kind of an interesting history because she didn't even know about it. She knew about what the men in her family were doing. It's like nobody told me about this grandmother who did this great thing. And so I interviewed them, and then I started, I think before I realized that this position was a real position, I kept seeing it in fiction. I saw it in Toni Morrison's Beloved. I saw it in Gil Jones' Corregidora. I just kept seeing it everywhere. So when I saw it in Cane River with Lolita Tadamy, she wrote in the author's notes that she felt the presence of her great-great-great-grandmother just kind of saying, okay, I need you to recover our family story, and kind of haunting her into it. That's when I realized, oh, this is a real position. And then I considered the way that I grew up, being that kid at the table that was so quiet, that people would forget you were there to overhear all of these things, stories. So I'm the one that knows stories maybe my cousins, my brother, my sister do not know. And so that was my dissertation project on all of that. So it kind of found me through the things that I was reading and making all of these connections.
Understand. Thank you. What are one of the two things you do wish you wish you had done or known before entering grad school?
I wish I had more confidence, because grad school is scary. It's stressful. A lot of people don't make it out. You've got a lot of people that wind up with a lot of mental illness, and it's intimidating. And people want you to be intimidated. It's almost like a weeding out process.
Right.
So I wish I knew sooner that I could do it and that I was going to be okay and make it out the other end. And I really, it's almost like you kind of fake your way through for a while. It took me a while to get to that point, and the right people in my life to kind of build that confidence.
I understand. And why do you think that there are so many misconceptions around the profession? Would you like to offer your opinion on any of these misconceptions?
I think one misconception about education, just at large, is that we have summers off and we have all of these breaks. Like we had a week last week with fall break, but that's when we spend our semesters teaching. We spend our breaks doing the other work, so we're always working. Because we all have articles and books that we want to write, things that we intend to do, things that we need to do, and then our passion. So I spent this Thanksgiving interviewing the writer. I had to travel home and conduct an interview, so it wasn't just I'm spending the week with my family. And so those are also the things that we're doing with our summers. And I also teach summer school. So
Wow, you use it year round.
yeah, so maybe the month that I break, when I take a break, I'm breaking all the way down.
Okay, that's great. Okay, last question here. Do you think it's important for more unappreciated minorities, underrepresented minorities to become professors?
Yes, I do, because the percentage is so low, but I think we need to do a better job of identifying students that we know are capable, of mentoring them, of kind of bringing them into our world. It would be great if we had the funding to get more students that might be assisted, so they can kind of see what it is that we do. I had the opportunity to do that and kind of travel with Dr. Estella. But, she kind of held me captive. And it's like, you're going to come to the office, you're going to do this, get in the car, we're going to go over here, we're going to go to these meetings. So, I was her assistant, her secretary, all of these things. So I kind of traveled with her in the community to see even how the work that is done on campus translates to community programs and projects and all those kind of things. So, yeah, we definitely need more, but we need to be able to show.
Show them some get more in. What can I do to better prepare myself to be a good candidate for grad school?
That's a good one. First of all, a lot of students in undergrad, they might miss it. You know, their GPAs might not be up to par, and they know it, but by the time they get to the end, they know they want to take it to the next level, so they're not really sure how to do it. Now, what I had to do was, that's when I went to the University of Louisville and I got my grad certificate. They had just started the Pan-African Studies program, but in every university, they might call it something different. University of Maryland, they called it Special Ed Net. I think at the University of Kentucky, they call it a baccalaureate student. Those are students that are not necessarily attached to a program, but are taking courses. And people need to be aware that those are the opportunities to raise your GPA. You're in classes, so now you've got research work that you're doing because you always have to provide a writing sample, and you get to work on your skills. And now you have more access to people that can write recommendations for you. And so I literally had to walk that path because I completed my undergraduate degree, and then I taught high school for 9 years. Well, my references had either left or moved, or I couldn't find them. I hadn't been in school in a while, so my writing samples didn't really exist, or they were old. And so that literally is what I had to do. And I got all of those things. So when I started applying, I had the references that I needed. I had the writing samples. I got my feet wet again and learning how to be a student again, because it takes a while when you've been out. And I got to raise my GPA. And those are the things that that any student can do.
Right. Okay. Last question here. What can I do to better my 27, right? What can I do to better myself, better prepare myself if I'm thinking about becoming a professor?
I would say start talking to professors, spend time in our offices. When we give people our office hours, that means you can come by, and we want you to come by and talk with us and spend time. Show up at events and places, on conferences. Volunteer for things, you know. So basically, we need to form relationships with professors because, you know, we're here for a reason. We're here not just to teach our subject matter, but because we do, you know, care for students and want to influence them. So there are some that we might identify, and we might say, okay, I need you to be part of this panel, or there's a conference opportunity, why don't you do that? Everybody doesn't follow through. And then some people might not be the ones that are asked. So if you show up and we start seeing your faces regularly, you can be the one that ends up being participating, you know, who ends up participating and getting involved. So that's the way we do it.
Alrighty then. Thank you.